And he's not saying that what Epstein did is a hoax. It's a terrible, unspeakable evil. He believes that himself. When he first heard the rumor, he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. He was an FBI informant to try to take this stuff down. The president knows and has great sympathy for the women who have suffered these unspeakable harms. It's detestable to him. He and I have spoken about this as recently as 24 hours ago.
Welcome, Left Reckoners, on this beautiful Tuesday afternoon. I'm Matt Leck. With me is David Griscom. Hello, David.
Hey, man. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, we got a really good one coming up. Daniel Boguslaw, investigative reporter, my favorite kind of reporter, talking about Epstein. He has a really grounded, smart, I think, understanding of a lot of the stuff, a lot of the more salacious stuff that's coming out. But before we get to that, Andrew Schultz, I don't know what your impression of this is lately. He's been trying to claw back a little bit of credibility.
So
I think
he's the kind of comedian guy who basically justified his support of Trump, of being like, oh, being around Trump is like for the guys who fuck bitches, right? And that's basically fair enough about what he was saying.
Yeah, Democrats don't act
Super
like they
cool,
fuck
dude.
anymore.
Super cool.
Yeah, he's like something like a 45-year-old man or something.
Hell
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, but he's been having Zoran on, and Zoran crushed on his show. And because he's a very charismatic guy, he's very cool, like actually cool, not like pretend cool for a camera. And so I've been like, okay, fine, Andrew, you wanna get Zoran on, talk about how it's cool to like tell Bill Ackman he's gonna pay taxes. Fine, buddy. This is how we make amends. And then I saw this clip of him with Charlemagne the God, in a library, which I'll be honest, guys, nobody's buying it. Nobody's buying this, fellas. But they had this to say. They weren't reading any of the books. They're mad, at least in Andrew Schultz's case, man spread it out here. But let's just see what Andrew Schultz has to say about
Jesus Christ.
I know.
Jesus Christ.
It's like that Bill Maher with that guy, that old guy that was it a Dreyfus?
Yeah.
But yeah, here's Andrew Schultz.
It's just funny to me that like there are people that were happy Charlie Kirk got shot because they disagreed on opinions, and they're fighting for due process for people who are driving fentanyl into the fucking country. Like, what the fuck do we live in? Why do we have more humanity for people who are actually profiting off of killing Americans?
But you shouldn't be like those people.
What do I got to do?
Don't become what you hate.
Exactly. What do you mean?
You're Christian.
I hate people trying to kill Americans.
You hate people
trying to kill him. So if you're trying to kill Charlie Kirk, or if you're trying to bring fentanyl in here, I hate both of y'all. It's just funny to me that like there are people that
okay. Yeah, like there's these people who are like really upset that ICE is like ripping families apart and putting grandma on the back of a van. They basically support the murder of Charlie Kirk and aren't worried about drugs in America. I mean, crazy.
Yeah, I mean, really, like, and like, it's hard to even know where to start. Let's start with the trafficking fentanyl thing. That's a lie. Nobody serious thinks that Venezuelan drug traffickers are a huge source of fentanyl.
Yeah.
Like, and also that when people talk about due
God,
process,
he's talking about the boat strikes.
the boats.
Oh man, I gave him too much credit even. Are you kidding me? People are upset about the United States military just like bombing boats, including killing many, many civilians. You should be, oh my God. All right, go ahead. I have some more to say on it.
Yeah, like no evidence that those people in those boats are even drug traffickers. In fact, like there's certain analysis of the intelligence that, for instance, it's full of people and not cargo, suggests that they were different kinds of boats. And fentanyl doesn't even come from Venezuela. That's the other thing, right? Like,
yeah.
And then the other thing is like, okay, due process with Charlie Kirk. People aren't happy. Okay, maybe you can find some people making jokes about Charlie Kirk. Okay, most of that, I would suggest, is a reaction against the politicization of his murder by the entire right wing, including Charlie or J.D. Vance.
They were. No, let's be very clear about this. When Kirk got killed, we had all these people saying they killed him. They killed him. They killed him. which was trying to create like this broad net of guilt and responsibility from it. And what ends up happening is an extremely disturbed individual who, like many killers, has access to guns that they should not have access to. And we live in a kind of a very dangerous and violent country with people with severe spiritual sickness and mental health issues. There's no group of people out here saying like, let him go.
Right.
Like,
and actually, it's important that that guy does receive due process on the right these days, because a lot of the right doesn't know what to think about who killed Charlie Kirk and thinks there's conspiratorial stuff about it. So actually, it's pretty important in both cases, Andrew, that sort of legal processes that guard against abuse are followed.
And also, let's be really clear about due process just in general. There is nothing, there's probably like no government action where you want there to be more kind of due process responsibility and scrutiny than when the United States kills people. One, because of just like the general relationship that we should have with humanity, right? But I guess that's going to fall on deaf ears. Even if you were just a cynical, selfish person, right, who only is worried about if Americans are getting killed, you can kill whatever fishermen in other countries you want. The fact of the matter is that the United States government has regularly participated in killing its own citizens. You look at what happened with the global war on terror. We have multiple instances where people were struck down on ludicrous legal theories that treated them as combatants, which, by the way, even if all of these people are, even if we accept the premise for a second that all these people are smuggling drugs into the country, the United States government still, like, there's a legal process for dealing with that. It is not just summary execution. And you should worry about something like that when you're encouraging and saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to look the other way when the government does something that they can't take back. I mean, this is like those kind of like, high school debates you have about like the death penalty, right? But when you kill somebody, you can't say, whoops, and, you are able to undo it or rectify it in some way. It's done. So when you're just saying like, hey, the Trump administration, which has shown themselves to be just criminally irresponsible in all aspects of government, say like, hey, we're going to give them literally the power of life and death. And if you're worried about how they are utilizing that power, then you're making excuses for quote unquote people who kill America. I mean, this is how an idiot thinks. Sorry. It really is.
Yeah, and this sort of this whole thing of like declaring them terrorists is so clearly motivated by a blatant power grab, because they understand what the word terrorism means, not because there's any terrorists driving fucking speedboats around the Caribbean right now. It's because it lets them go to the special shelf of government powers called we're dealing with terrorists now, and that lets us kill. That's a license to kill. That's a comedian, Andrew Schultz, basically saying, I think the government should have a license to kill. And this whole thing, bullshit about like, oh, it's about Charlie Kirk. It's just like, it's so embarrassing. Man.
It really
like,
is. And I mean,
grow up.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, I mean, it's the way that a child thinks. And you would hope that somebody of that age, frankly, any kind of thinking adult, would be able to kind of look at what's happened to this country since the global war on terror, how that has been used to justify all kinds of abuses, not just deadly, but also to just our basic democratic rights in this country. And I don't know, be a little bit on the fence about whether or not you should give the government license to kill. But this group of people have kind of shown themselves time and time again to not really have that kind of level of reflection, and it's a shame that our country and political discourse has got to a level where we have to respond to the dumbass guy who said he liked Trump because he felt like these are the guys who get bitches, and like Bill Clinton did. It just
he just went on this thing where he's like, this isn't what I voted for, where even Steven Crowder's like, what do you mean? Yeah,
so maybe have a little bit of humility before you start dealing out death sentences, asshole. Just
anyways, folks, we got a great interview with Daniel Boguslaw. Also, don't forget, later in the week, great Jacobin show. We got Robin Wansley from Minneapolis, as well as Brendan James, talking about Dick Cheney being dead and Elon Musk's father. So you're not going to want to not going to want to miss that. But yeah, David,
Let's do it. No, enjoy, folks. Subscribe here. And don't forget our Sunday shows. We had a really great one last Sunday. We had a little bit of a Texas Senate preview along with a lot of other fun clips. Sunday shows are a lot of fun. They're just for our patrons. So consider supporting us at patreon.com/leftreckon to get access to it.
Oh yeah, folks. If you're going to want to see the split between Jim Brewer and Ron DeSantis, you're going to want to check out.
Very strange things are happening in our skies. And luckily, Jim Brewer is on the case.
Goat Boy himself is bleeding at Ron DeSantis. Yeah, patreon.com/leftreckoning. Here's Daniel Boguslaw. Welcome, Left Reckoners. I'm Matt Leck, and joining me today is Daniel Boguslaw. Daniel is an investigative reporter. You can see his work at Rolling Stone, Vice, Intercept, The American Prospect. And on Friday in The American Prospect, he had a piece on this issue pertaining to Larry Summers. We'll get to him a little bit later, although I can hardly wait. But first, Daniel, for folks who are maybe just tuning into this and haven't been maybe consuming podcasts about Jeffrey Epstein for almost a decade, it seems like now, who is Jeffrey Epstein and why is this coming to a head now?
Sure. Well, I've been doing a lot of podcasts this past week. I've been giving some answers to this question that not everyone has been excited about, but I thank you for having me. I'm going to give my perspective, having looked at this issue for a long time. I will say my interest in Jeffrey Epstein began right around the time of his death. I think at that point I was an intern, and I remember there was a lot of excitement in New York City about trying to figure out what was happening. There was a group of sort of like Epstein truthers that would meet up in Union Square. And so on my lunch break, I would go talk to them. So that's all to say I've been following this issue for a long time. To answer the question of who is Jeffrey Epstein, it really depends on who you ask. I, like many others, am very fascinated with this question. I've tried to talk to a lot of different types of people. I've talked to old New York fixers during the mayoral race. I tried to talk to people who were sort of New York City political movers and shakers, political bosses who had been around. I have done a lot of reporting on intelligence agencies. I did a story for Unheard about former CIA officers describing the CIA's domestic operations and why it seems unlikely that they wouldn't have at least had some kind of informal or formal meeting with Epstein. I've talked to former FBI special agents and supervisors from Florida who had direct knowledge of the Epstein case and did a story for Rolling Stone about how Epstein basically hired goons to intimidate the FBI agents investigating him. And I've read thousands and thousands of pages of documents. And so all of that is context to say, who is Jeffrey Epstein? I think Jeffrey Epstein was an incredible con man who was incredible in his ability to climb out of the middle class and enter the upper class by becoming a money manager for Victoria's Secret CEO Les Wexner. He was able to do this by ingratiating himself in New York City elite circles, first at a private school, then later at Bear Stearns. And he was very fluent in the language of the elite, so much so that he was able to surround himself with them and convince them that he was the right man to manage their money. But again, I think the most extraordinary part of this story, having covered a lot of ground and looked at a lot of the different pieces of it, is that we're seeing the steady state of how the elite functions. We are seeing not that Epstein needed to use blackmail to coerce these people into maintaining connections with him even after he was prosecuted for sex crimes against children, but that these people were willing to maintain friendships with him without any sort of blackmail or pressure, whether it's Larry Summers, as you mentioned, whether it's Obama's former White House counsel, whether it's Democratic megadonor and LinkedIn founder Reid Hoffman. These email exchanges show that, in fact, there was no need for videos of kiddie porn or sexual abuse. These people liked Epstein. They liked spending time with him. They liked exchanging ideas with him, and they liked trying to solicit money from him. So My answer to the question of who's Jeffrey Epstein is incredible con man and pervert.
Yeah, and I think I kind of agree with you. The one thing that I've seen on specifically regards to blackmail was reportedly tapes collected that I believe Ryan Grimm of Dropsite mentioned this, where they had supposedly a name plus name and redacted, but that's really the only like physical evidence for like an actual blackmailing scheme that I've seen. I don't know what you've seen on that.
I mean, there is a question of footage. This is a big question that I think is very open. Some people, some reporters with a history of lengthy and costly corrections, like you just mentioned, like to jump to conclusions about what that footage looks like. We do know from the work of people like Jason Leopold and his lawyer. I think his name's Alex Novak. I'm blanking on his first name. He's going to be pissed if he sees this, that I forgot his first name. But we have, at least we know kind of the index of what the FBI is holding. We know that there are tapes. We know that there are CDs. We know that there's footage, certainly lots of photographs of, again, children, child pornography. But it's very unclear, at each step of this process, it's very easy to imagine the worst. It's very easy to imagine that he had these hidden cameras set up and that he was videotaping everyone who was coming in and that he was, setting these guys up to have sex with kids. But, it's also very possible that we're talking about surveillance footage, that we might see people we didn't know entering his townhouse before, but that, that they were not doing anything untoward. I find it hard to believe that given the amount of sex that this guy was having, that and the nature of some of the conversations he's had, that some of these powerful people did not, partake in some capacity. But I have not seen strong evidence that this was systematized. And I think what we risk by buying into something we don't have evidence for here is distracting ourselves from the true conspiracy that is now completely out in the open, which is that some of the most powerful people in our country, specifically thought leaders of the Democratic Party and mega donors for the Democrats, were completely willing to continue engaging with Jeffrey Epstein, a convicted sex criminal, sometimes for donations, but sometimes for their own volition, the personal relationship, the kind of abstract promise of being connected to the elite. And so I am cautious because I want to be honest that we don't know what's in there. There could be really crazy shit in the FBI files, but we shouldn't distract ourselves waiting for that from what we're seeing now and how shocking it is.
Yeah, and I think it's probably important to emphasize like the reasons why Epstein was welcomed into those circles, right? And whether it's this sort of like financial, geopolitical information, or if it's how to talk to girls, and maybe that's a good chance to get to Larry Summers right off the bat. So for folks who don't know, who is Larry Summers and what's his place in the Democratic Party, and what has he been exposed, or how has his relationship been exposed in the recent weeks?
So it's hard to kind of think of a better superlative figure for sort of centrist, center-left elite Democratic figurehead. Summers was a former U.S. Treasury Secretary, former president of Harvard, a role he was forced to resign from due to comments he made about women. But he's endured as a cornerstone for centrist thought. The laundry list of affiliations he has is too long to list here. He has tremendous sway inside the party. He has tremendous connections to DNC party infrastructure, former presidents, potential future presidents, as I reported last week, was a central component of the sort of largest center-left think tank's effort to design a policy portfolio for 2029 for the next potential Democratic administration. So this is someone who's really injected himself into and endured in Democratic politics for decades. And, in the most recent dump from the House Oversight Committee, we saw just an extraordinarily crude and embarrassing dialogue between Summers and Jeffrey Epstein right up until the day Epstein was arrested, discussing Summers' efforts to court a mentee at Harvard and sort of getting, as you said, dating advice from Jeffrey Epstein and very kind of pickup artisty, you know, how to play hard to get and bear in mind, Summers is married at this point. But we also know that Summers was interacting with him up until this point too. I mean, this is not the first time that this has surfaced, and every time Summers sort of comes out and says, I made some real mistakes in my day. But I think this time it's even worse, given the fact that Summers' own, you know, this was no longer just about money. This was no longer about prestige. This was no longer about fundraising. This was really about personal connection. And I think that's been what's so horrifying, both in terms of Summers and the other elites who are named in this, is you see that this was not about blackmail. This was not even about monetary gain. It was about a human integration into the elite mentality. It was about recognizing something familiar in Epstein and sharing that and nurturing that relationship. And I think, you know, if you read through these emails, that's almost the most horrifying part, is seeing this familiarity, this recognition, this simpatico, you know, back and forth joking relationship with so many of these powerful people and Epstein.
Yeah, I mean, the shabbiness of it, because I remember some other folk guy, I think, was talking when in the context of that yearbook that was signed, but about Epstein sort of being able to magic women out of thin air.
Right.
And it really falls into place why all these very powerful, moneyed nerds would value a guy like that so incredibly dearly.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think it's also important, you know, I don't know, I wouldn't say I've been surrounded by them, but I've certainly met Wall Streeters in my day, dive bombing the Capitol Grill during potential financial crashes and interviewing them on the street. And, you know, people are, how did he do it? How was he able to do this? I mean, this guy's a classic money manager. I mean, this is what money managers do, right? They convince people who are richer than them to give them their money to invest in normal businesses, and then they take a cut of that and they claim that they are some sort of you know, financial genius. And you can see that in these emails, especially in this latest tranche. I mean, you have these people writing to him, and he's you know, I dropped out of Econ 101 during college because I thought it was so boring, but even I can understand the advice he's giving these people. I mean, it's not brilliant advice. It's pretty fundamentals. You know, it's you know, what does the Wall Street Journal say the Fed hikes are going to look like? How do you adjust accordingly? You know, should you invest in Facebook or Microsoft? I mean, this is like really stupid stuff that these guys are asking him for. And as you mentioned, I think you're right. They are largely nerds, and he's supplementing this extraordinarily stupid financial, or, you know, base level financial advice with this weird aura, this weird con man aura. And this is another thing that I think is important with the whole intelligence angle, right? I mean, there is reporting from the 80s and 90s where Epstein is going around and telling people he wants to be James Bond. He's telling people he's CIA. I mean, far from this being some secret that he was keeping, he was very forward with trying to cultivate this idea and this image of mystery and power. And I think with each successive tranche, I mean, maybe I'll have to eat my shoe. We'll see if these FBI docs ever come out. But, and even, you know, and this is even what the CIA officers told me who I spoke with, you know, this guy was kind of a moron. And, you know, that can be useful. There's useful idiot intelligence assets for sure. But I don't think he was one. And I think that's very clear from the sloppiness with which he's interacting with these people and the stupidity with which he's interacting with these people.
Yeah. And, you know, I was shocked to see, I mean, I hope this is the final nail in Larry Summers' coffin. I was shocked to see him put on that Center for American Progress's Project 2029.
Yeah. And yes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I mean they fought me tooth and nail. I mean, I've reviewed documents showing this. I talked to a number of sources confirming this, and they kept saying that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. And then, of course, the Washington Post confirmed all of my reporting today. You know, after I reported this on Friday. But it shows how integrated he is. I mean, right? He's got Obama's number on speed dial. He's got the head of Cabinet Neera Tanden's number on speed dial. It's like, he is this fundamental part of the machine. In a lot of ways, that seems to mirror Jeffrey Epstein's role, where it's like despite the fact that this guy isn't even really like providing you with that much, like he's not really actually giving you that much money. He's not like really actually giving you good advice, but he's insulated himself. He's connected himself to all these people, and he's entered into that elite network where people don't want to turn on each other, right? It's like you're part of the crew. You're one of us. And again, I think that's the most fundamental thing to look at here. You know, most normal people are like, well, there's no way that these people would stay friends or do their bidding with a guy who was having sex with kids. I mean, how could you do that? And that's a normal human response for normal people to have. But again, I think what this shows is that these people are not normal. They exist in a sliver of society that has abandoned all the normal rules of morals and ethics that govern the rest of society. And so, you know, I think, and we see that again now with Larry Summers, right? Where it's like, everyone and their mother is coming out to try to shield this guy and protect him and hope that this whole thing blows over. I mean, he hasn't been removed from, you know, any of the positions so far. I've been told that there are discussions at a number of organizations about removing him. But again, it goes to show how these guys can become like the archstone that's holding everything together, even when they don't contribute that much to the people in their network.
Yeah, it is, and this is the part I think that drives people crazy, because it doesn't make sense why. And there's another version from across the ocean. Peter Mendelsohn was fired as a UK ambassador to the US in September,
right?
Because stuff came out about emails with him and Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, and if I could just take some credit for that, I did leak those passwords to his accounts, and 4 weeks after I posted his email passwords, miraculously 18,000 emails showed up in Bloomberg's inbox. So Bloomberg, I'm ready for my paycheck. Whenever you want to send it to me. But sorry, continue.
No, that's fascinating. Well, the funny thing about that whole thing was Keir Starmer being like, well, some more stuff came out and we just couldn't, justify keeping him on. But then you look back at why he was brought on in the first place, and it was alluding to something of he's familiar with the dark arts.
Right.
And that sort of stuff. Well, it's like, what is it? Are you sure you didn't just hire him for the same reason you just fired him for?
Exactly. Right. I mean, that's exactly right. It's his connection. And you're right. When they hired him, his connection was an asset, and then it became a liability. And I don't know. I just wish people would sit with this more and you know, stop braying for something that I don't think is gonna happen. You know, I don't think we're gonna find these tapes, and I worry that then when we don't find these tapes of whatever, Dershowitz or whoever, you know, screwing kids, that people are then going to overwrite everything that we're finding out. And I think you're completely right that the value is the network. The value is the connection. And this whole notion of dark arts or secret knowledge or esotericism, that's all part of the charade. That's what the elite do. That's how the elite preserve their ability to rule over us without accountability, because they pretend like they have some secret knowledge or some secret power when they don't. When they're stupider than anyone who's ever, you know, flipped burgers or worked a real job with their fucking hands.
Yeah, and I promise I'll ask about Trump too, for people that are getting a little bit anxious about how focused this is on Democrats. But Reid Hoffman has also been a huge power player in the Democratic Party recently. I believe he was a Netflix guy, right? Is that where his money's from?
He was LinkedIn, and I believe he was also part of the PayPal mafia, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was just LinkedIn, but I think he was also in on PayPal. And you know, he's been a huge mega donor, and I believe he's visited Epstein's Island. We've known that before. He was involved in soliciting Epstein for fundraising for MIT. But again, we see this cozy relationship extending well after 2009 when Epstein is convicted. You know, this closeness, this exchange of ideas, which is like, you know, kind of what you would imagine the exchange between New York Times editors to be, you know, just like kind of whatever the slop of the day is, but they're kind of pretending like they have some incredible focus on it. And so now Trump has come out, you know, transitioning to Trump, he's come out and said, investigate Larry Summers, investigate Reid Hoffman, you know, investigate my enemies, leave me out of it. But of course, Trump was, you know, photographed with Epstein. They were close friends. There's videos of them partying together. In one of these most recent tranches, Epstein writes to his attorney about Mar-a-Lago being funded with union kickback money or something along those lines. I have to go back and find the tweet. But it's interesting now because now Trump is saying, okay, screw it. He's been fighting this disclosure. The House of Representatives has been trying to pass legislation that would compel the FBI and DOJ to release their information on Jeffrey Epstein. Trump has fought it. He's reversed course this week. But, one thing that I think has bubbled a little bit on Twitter, but no one's really nailed yet, is that this legislation gives extraordinary decision-making powers to the president and DOJ around classified material. And so my gut reaction from Trump's about face is that what gets released is not going to be very meaty or juicy, and that Pam Bondi is actually, and Kash Patel, the FBI director, are going to have tremendous ability to shape selectively what comes out of there. But it's been an amazing issue because I think on a lot of other points, Donald Trump is really able to warp the narrative and usually change the news cycle that his base is absorbing. But in this case, there is something so inherently legible to his base, it seems, about the elite domination that this case represents, that they're not letting him off the hook. So there's been a lot of pressure on both him and Republicans, I think, to come up with something substantive.
And for the first time in years, it feels like there's a sort of potency among other Republicans to drive a story besides Trump.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and that's why the loss of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert on this issue and Nancy Mace has been, I think, such a huge problem for him.
Yeah. And I think, it's pretty wild to see. We've seen this lockstep with GOP and Trump for so many years now. But I think this speaks to the power of raw populism, right? It's like, in the end, Trump is not actually that powerful, is not more powerful than the populist base that elected him. And I think with this Epstein stuff, what we're seeing is a familiarity, a recognition that there are forces in our society. Some people think those forces are the Mossad. Some people think those forces are UFOs. And some people think those forces are the elite. But regardless, that there is some hierarchy that makes decisions in our lives that are supposed to be collective decisions made through our democratic process. I think that people are tapping into this in different streams, but there's something just undeniable that people feel in their bones about it. And it is able to overcome even the power of Trump's control over his own party.
What do you make of the Trump is an informant angle of this that's been burbling up, especially because Mike Johnson's basically said it
Sure. Well,
a few weeks ago.
I mean, look, everyone's an informant. I mean, we know Trump is an informant. In fact, it's been reported that Trump repeatedly spoke with the FBI on multiple occasions. So that's been reported. That's nothing new. And I think it's important for people to realize that there are gradients within the way that the FBI interfaces with what are called confidential human sources or informants or human sources, which is to say that there is a time when official paperwork is filed, right? And that name goes into a file, and every time there's a meeting, it gets updated. But the FBI also breaks the rules all the time, and there's informal check-ins. There's all kinds of things. Plus, we know from reporting that is out there that Trump has spoken to the FBI on multiple occasions. So I'm pretty skeptical of that idea. I do think that it's very plausible and indeed likely that there's embarrassing and incriminating information about Donald Trump in those files, about his businesses and probably about his personal life. But are there, and there could be, I guess it is fair to say that maybe there are interviews with him that haven't been released before. But I'm not sure any one thing is going to be the bombshell. I think he was laced into Epstein's set pretty good. And so I think it's probably it's probably a constant. He's probably all over it. And I doubt that it's sexual blackmail, but it's probably some pretty embarrassing stuff.
Right. Well, Daniel, if the video comes out of him allegedly filleting Bill Clinton, we'll have you back on the program.
Have me back on. I'll eat my shoe. I'd love to see the video, and I'll apologize to all your listeners for getting it backwards.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your work on this. Where should people follow you?
People can follow me on Substack. Dan Boguslaw, Deeper States is the name of my Substack there, or on Twitter, Dr. Boguslaw. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Thanks, Daniel.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Well, Matt, thank you. That was a really great interview. I mean, truly, truly harrowing stuff, to be honest. And I really appreciate Boguslaw's analysis there. It's a little bit different from what we're getting from a lot of folks, even sympathetic.
Yeah, like I said, if it turns out that there is video evidence of Donald Trump sucking Bill Clinton, we'll have Daniel on to apologize.
The first call. Well, Matt, thank you for putting that interview together. Everyone, we appreciate all of our listeners here so much. Just a reminder, we are also doing the Jacobin Show. That's every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern. We got a great episode with Robin Wansley, as well as Brendan James from the Blowback Podcast. You're not going to want to miss it. Thanks, everybody who tuned in to episode 1. And do not forget, we got these Sunday shows only for our Left Reckoning patrons. What are folks saying, Matt? People say all the time, my favorite thing about Left Reckoning is the Sunday show, and I do agree. So y'all are not going to want to miss that. It's just $5 a month to keep this program going. We really appreciate all of the support we've had from folks over these past 5 years and are really looking forward to everything that's coming next for Left Reckoning. So thank you for your support. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you Sunday.